Hi guys, it's Sean here from Momentum again, and right now we're going to deliver the part 2 of our nutrition series, which we're going to call the numbers of nutrition. Now before we start, I highly recommend that you watch part 1, and if you haven't, we're going to put that link in here for you to have a look at. But from part 1, I want you to make sure you remember these key points. What are the 4 types of macronutrients? And you should also know what those caloric values are for each gram as well. And also try to remember that nutrition and priorities pyramid, because that's something that will help you with understanding where you should put your calories when you're eating. And not only that, did you actually do the activity? Because that's a very useful tool to use for yourself. Because when you're making food, when you start to look at it, it starts to become more like Tetris blocks, and you know how which constituent can go where and what you can do to help you top up your macros if you're falling a little bit low. So let's get on with today's episode. Today we're going to go through with the metabolism. Now I'll put the pyramid from the last episode because I want you to look at number 4 and number 5 in this pyramid, where we address more about your metabolism and also your total daily energy expenditure. And these have a strong relationship with each other, which we're going to show you in the next slide. But when we look at metabolism, we have that definition right that I've put on this slide right now. The chemical processes that take place within a living organism to maintain life. Now, that's a very long sentence for saying if you were to lie down all day and you were to eat some food, this is how much food you're required to do, or required to have, actually, should I say, just so you can maintain your bodily function because you're not doing anything. But let's have a look at the definitions on the next page. So I've put basal metabolic rate, also known as BMR, together with total daily energy expenditure because these two things give us the required amount for a whole day. So when we look at the BMR, it's required calories to maintain body function. So if you were to wake up, you lie down all day, this is how many calories you would need to make sure your body doesn't deteriorate, essentially. From there, we start looking at total daily energy expenditure. We're going to look at the energy spent in your day's activities. So pause if you need to, but have a think about what you do in your day. Are you walking all day as a waitress? Are you sitting down all day in the office? Because these two things contribute a lot to this number right here. And we're going to show you that in the next slide. But the next three definitions, which I'm going to go through very briefly right now, is the caloric maintenance, which is when net calories equals 0. We look at caloric surplus, where net calories is in positive. And then we look at calories in deficit, where it's the opposite, it's in negative. But let's get started on the next slide. So here's a visual representation of what caloric maintenance means. So this individual here knows that if they were to lie down all day, and we can find this basal metabolic rate through technology as well, or a really smart estimation, should I say. BMR is sitting at 1,400 calories. And then this person is not doing much all day, I'd say, maybe walking every hour for 10 minutes, working in an office, and nothing of high intensity, but they burn about 700 calories from leaving their house to coming back home. And it's not much when you look at it in an 8-hour day. So we add these two numbers together, and this gives us 2,100 calories, or maintenance in calories. This is really useful to know if the person wants to maintain their weight. So let's have a look at the next slide from here. We now have the caloric surplus. So same subject, caloric maintenance is at 2,100, but what happens if this person consumes 2,400 calories in a day? This would now mean that the person has a net reading of 300 calories. So this is now known as a surplus, and we need to know that if you're in a surplus, this is going to help you put on weight, or this is going to help you put on some strength and some muscle too, depending on what your stimulus is on the body. You have to train to build muscle. The next one that we've got is the same subject once again. And let's imagine that this person now eats 1,500 calories in a day. This net reading now becomes minus 600 calories per day. So now this is going to help the person lose weight. Now, we're not going to go into too much of it today, but what we're going to go through is let you know that caloric deficits, surplus, and also maintenance and what they do. The caloric deficit helps you decrease fat mass. This also helps you lose muscle mass. So that's why it's important to make sure you know where your calories are, or at least a rough approximation is between deficit, maintenance, and surplus. The next thing is the caloric maintenance. So this is really good for people to maintain their weight or maintain their muscle mass. So someone who's just looking to maintain everything, not progress too much or put on too much weight as well. From here we have caloric surplus. So the caloric surplus helps us with increasing muscle mass, increasing strength, increasing weight. Now this is also given that this helps in a negative way. It also helps you increase fat mass. And this is where maybe if you happen to find yourself in the heavier end, that's where you might be in the surplus. From here, we have now the rules of thumb. Because all these things have numbers now. We've got protein, we've got fats, and we've got carbs. So let's go through the rules of thumb. And if you don't understand this part, that's completely fine. This is actually more so what I do on my end on the backside. If I were to give someone some prescribed macronutrients or helping them maintain their weight, I say, hey, look, can you please make sure you look into this? So for protein, what we do is for 1 gram of protein per pound that the person weighs. So you have to know that the relationship between kilos and pounds as well. So find that out. It's 2.2 kilos, or sorry, 2.2 pounds per kilo approximately, and that's as accurate as we need to be. For fats, it's about 0.65 grams of fat per 1 kilo of body weight for the individual and how they weigh. Now, depending on what the person weighs, if they're quite light, obviously you might need to give them more. So these are all rules of thumb. Okay, so make sure you don't take it as Bible and gospel, but this does help you try and find where you might need to be. For the carbohydrates, we tend to finish off the calories with the carbohydrates. So you do need to know approximately what your caloric maintenance is. And once again, like I said, this could be through some technology, or it could just be through some smart approximations, should I say. Let's give you a case study now. So we have a 27-year-old male who wants to lose more weight. He hasn't tracked macros, but he does track his calories, which is a good start. And from here, he's stalled in weight loss for the last 2 months. His strength has also started to decrease in training as well, and it has become a little bit more stagnant. So as we start to see less progress, we tend to be less motivated. In his 2,100 calories that he eats, it's a random assortment of macronutrients. So he doesn't actually track his macros, he just looks at the calories. And now he wants to do is get started in it to maintain his weight first before we see any changes, because that's a good point to start with. Looking on this next slide here, we've got the calculations of each. And once again, if I lose you, that's completely fine. This is something more so what I do in my position to help the clients that I look after. So for the protein, we've got the rule at the bottom, so 1 gram per pound. We do the calculation, so we convert the weight into pounds. Then we times it by 1 gram per pound. So that's 198 grams of protein. Now at the bottom of there, I've put the calories, which is 792 calories, which is going to help us in the future. From here, we've got the fats as well. So we've got the calculation, which is 90 kilos times 0.65, which gives us approximately 58.5 grams of fat. And that gives us the calories of 526.5 calories. Now we're looking at the carbohydrates. This is where it gets tricky. Once again, you need to know roughly where you maintain your body weight. So we said 2,100 calories is roughly where this individual maintains. So we find the calories from proteins and fats, we add them together, gives us an approximate number of 1,319. We minus that from the BMR, which is 2,100, and that gives us 781 calories for carbohydrates. Now that's not useful to us until we convert that back into grams, so we divide it by 4, and it's approximately 195 grams of carbohydrates. Now, if you got lost there, that's absolutely fine, because if you have a good coach to help you out or anyone who's able to do this for you, they'll just say, eat this much, keep tracking it. We worry about that and we find the trends for you. So what do you do from here? If you're starting this journey, I want you to know that consistency is key. You must track appropriately as well, and we're going to show you how to do that. The next thing is to actually learn about the food, because it's very common when people go, hey, look, I need more protein in my day. I'm going to eat bananas. And then they go into their MyFitnessPal apps or anything on those lines, and bananas don't actually have any protein. So you want to make sure you understand the nutrition part as well. Now that's all we've got for today's little one. It's a little bit confusing, so if you got lost, try and find more information on our social medias. So we've got websites, our Instagram, and also our Facebook as well. If you want to as well, you can always comment on this video and I'll get back to you. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you in part 3.